What happens when Hollywood's favorite wise guy clashes with a late-night host on the edge? When one of Hollywood's most beloved charmers squares off against a late-night legend having an off night? Sparks are bound to fly. But no one expected this. You're about to witness one of the most jaw-dropping moments in modern television. A routine celebrity interview that spiraled into a full-blown on-air feud, culminating in security stepping in, and Ryan Reynolds being escorted off the set of The Late Show. But before we break down this unbelievable moment, don't forget to hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What do you think really pushed Stephen Colbert over the edge? The night began like any other. The audience was electric. The cameras were rolling. Ryan Reynolds entered with his trademark grin sliding into the guest chair, ready to charm. But the energy shifted fast. Colbert, shuffling his interview cards with a noticeable edge, didn't waste time on pleasantries. You're here to talk about your new film. Tell me, do you ever get tired of playing the same smirking character in every single movie? The audience chuckled, uncertain. The question cut deeper than typical late-night banter. Reynolds' smile faltered, but only slightly. "That's rich," he replied coolly, coming from someone who's played one character for over a decade. "At least, I change costumes now and then." The crowd laughed, nervously. Colbert's jaw visibly clenched. "That character was satire, Ryan. It was political commentary. What you do, that's just being yourself, if we can even call it acting." Reynolds leaned back, his tone sharpening. "You're right. I show up and be myself. And somehow, people actually like spending time with me. When was the last time someone laughed at one of your jokes? Genuinely laughed, instead of clapping because they thought they were supposed..." "Oh!" Silence. Tension rippled through the audience. Colbert set his cards down. "Are you seriously questioning my comedy credentials on my show?" he asked, voice tight. "I've been making people laugh since before you could form a coherent sentence without a team of writers." "Have you, though?" Reynolds shot back. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you peaked 15 years ago. And you've been chasing that magic ever since. Your ratings sure back me up." Now the studio was dead quiet. What had started as playful turned personal. Colbert flushed. "Let's talk box office. Green Lantern ring any bells? Or how about the time you had to beg Disney to make Deadpool because no one else would touch you?" Reynolds stood up, fists clenched. "At least when I fail, I own it. I don't pretend to be some high-minded political intellectual, when really, I'm just a network stooge, reading jokes off a teleprompter." "You want to talk about Green Lantern? Fine. It sucked. Everyone knows it sucked. But I didn't build my brand, pretending I was smarter than everyone else." Colbert was up now, too. Face flushed, voice raised. "You think I'm a yes man? I've interviewed presidents. I've covered elections. I've shaped political discourse in this country." "Political discourse?" Reynolds laughed bitterly. "You mean softball questions to politicians who see you as a PR tool? When was the last time you challenged someone? You used to be fearless. Now you're just hoping your jokes go viral." The audience was squirming in their seats. Some looked toward the exits. This was no bit. Colbert's hands trembled. "Your problem, Reynolds, is you think mocking your own bad movies makes you self-aware. But really, it just shows you don't care. Not about the craft. Not about storytelling. You're just cashing checks and recycling the same old jokes about being Canadian." Reynolds stepped closer to the desk. His voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, laced with venom. "And your problem, Stephen, you're so desperate to be taken seriously, you forgot how to actually be funny." Security intervened seconds later. Reynolds was escorted off set. Colbert sat back down, visibly shaken, trying to salvage the segment with an awkward transition. What followed was a media firestorm. Clips went viral, theories exploded online, and fans debated who crossed the line. Weeks later, neither Reynolds nor Colbert directly addressed the incident, but insiders hinted that the tension had been building for months. Off-camera comments, political jabs, and egos clashing behind the scenes. What began as a typical late-night plug became a legendary implosion, a warning shot about the fragile balance between celebrity, satire, and ego in the entertainment world. Let us know in the comments. Was Colbert justified in pushing back? Or did Reynolds expose a painful truth about late-night comedies fall from relevance? How to actually be funny? That's what Ryan Reynolds asked, after all pretense had vanished. You've traded in whatever comedic instincts you had, he said, his voice low, cold, for the approval of people who don't respect you, and never will. At least when I phone it in, I'm not pretending it's art. Colbert slammed his hand on the desk. His coffee mug rattled. Get out! He barked. Get out of my studio. I don't need to sit here and get lectured on comedy by a washed-up action star. Security! Reynolds didn't flinch. He laughed, a hard, bitter sound. Your studio! He shot back. This is CBS's studio. You're just another employee. Just like me. Only difference is I know it. Footsteps echoed as security approached the stage. Colbert, now red-faced, jabbed a finger toward the wings. I said, get out. You're done here. This interview is over. But Reynolds turned to the audience, unfazed. You know what, folks? He said, facing the crowd as Colbert seethed behind him. Since Stephen here wants to act like this is his kingdom, maybe it's time you knew what really happens behind the scenes of your favorite late-night show. The audience sat frozen. No claps, no laughter, just stunned silence. You think I'm having a breakdown? Reynolds said, turning back to Colbert. Tell them about the screaming match with your producers 20 minutes ago. Or how you threatened to walk if they didn't start booking bigger guests, because your ego can't handle being the third option on a good night. Colbert paled. You don't know what you're talking about. Security! But the guards were hesitating. In their earpieces, producers were scrambling. Cut to commercial or let it ride. Either decision could be career-defining. Oh, I know. Exactly what I'm talking about. Reynolds pressed on. The cue cards hidden under your desk? The mock interviews you make your team do so you don't get caught off guard? The clause in your contract that lets you eject any guest who bruises? Your ego? Now the audience was hooked. The tension had turned to raw fascination. Colbert stormed from behind the desk, getting in Reynolds' face. You think you're clever? You come on my show to humiliate me? No, Reynolds said coolly. That's just a bonus. Colbert's voice dropped, venomous. When this is over, when the cameras stop, you'll still be a mediocre actor who peaked with a superhero movie you didn't even write. And I'll still be here, doing what I do, while you fade back into irrelevance. Reynolds smirked. That mediocre actor made more money last year than you did in the past 5. And unlike you, I didn't have to sell my soul to a network. When people think of you, Stephen, they remember the guy from Comedy Central who used to be funny. When they think of me, they're still laughing. Colbert's voice rose to a near shout. Still laughing! You've been doing the same shtick for 15 years. Winking at the camera, making fun of your own bad movies. That's not comedy. It's admitting you have no standards. And your whole career, Reynolds snapped, is built on other people's punchlines. When's the last time you wrote your own joke? When's the last time you said something real that wasn't workshopped, edited and neutered by a legal team? You used to be fearless, Stephen. Now, you're just a corporate puppet in a blazer. The tension in the studio was unbearable. Audience members raised their phones. They knew they were watching television history unravel. Colbert stepped closer, his voice now a whisper laced with rage. "You want to see Fearless?" he said, leaning in. "You want to see what happens when the gloves come off?" Colbert, coldly. "Fine. You want to stop playing nice? Let's talk about your marriage, Ryan. Let's talk about how you had to completely reinvent yourself when you started dating Blake Lively, because no one could stomach the real you. Your whole public persona is just a PR fairy tale, crafted to distract from the self-absorbed narcissist hiding underneath." A collective gasp rippled through the studio. Reynolds' face darkened, and for a tense second it looked like things might turn physical. Reynolds, low and sharp. "Careful, Stephen. You really don't want to go down that road with me, because if we're dragging personal lives into this, I've got a few chapters from yours." He stepped forward, voice quiet, but laced with steel. "How's that divorce going, huh? Still pretending it was mutual when everyone knows she left because she couldn't stand being married to a man who loved his public image more than his own family?" Colbert went white with rage. Colbert, shaking. "How dare you? How dare you bring my family into this? You have no right. None." Reynolds, unflinching. "I've got every right. You opened that door. And I know plenty. I know you've become so obsessed with being seen as the intellectual alternative to other hosts that you've forgotten how to actually connect with anyone. Your staff walks on eggshells because they never know which version of Stephen they're getting. That day, and deep down, you're terrified people are starting to realize you're not half as smart or half as funny as you pretend to be." Security began to move in closer, but both men were locked in. Colbert, furious. "You think you know me? You think you understand what I've built? I've created something that matters. I've used this platform to inform, to challenge, to educate. What have you done? Made jokes about chimichangas?" Reynolds, bitter laugh. "What I've done, I've been honest. I don't hide behind faux gravitas and network safety nets. You've built yourself a little echo chamber, where you pretend to be important, while never actually challenging anyone with real power. Your idea of hard-hitting journalism is asking softball questions to politicians who treat you like a trained seal." A security guard finally reached Reynolds, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Security. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." Reynolds shrugged off the hand, never breaking eye contact with Colbert. Reynolds, "Don't worry, I'm done here. But before I go, Stephen, remember this. Tonight, right here in front of your audience, and everyone watching at home, you showed them who you really are. Not the clever character, not the polished figure your PR team built. The real Stephen, Colbert. A bitter, insecure man who crumbles when someone refuses to play along." Colbert's fists were clenched at his sides. "Colbert, get him out. Now, before I do something I'll regret." As security began escorting Reynolds toward the wings, Colbert couldn't help himself. Colbert, mocking. "That's right. Walk away. Just like you walked away from every serious role you ever tried. Just like you'll walk away from this industry when they finally get tired of your one-trick act." Reynolds stopped dead in his tracks. The guard stumbled slightly. He turned slowly, the fury in his eyes making the entire room go still. "Reynolds, you know, I was going to walk away. I was going to let you keep whatever scraps of dignity you had left. But since you insist, he shrugged off the guards again, surprisingly calm. Let's give them something they'll really remember. The head of security called for backup. Reynolds raised his hands. Reynolds, relax. I'm not going to hit anyone. I just want to finish what he started. He turned back to the audience, his voice level and deliberate. Reynolds, you want to know who Stephen Colbert is? The real Stephen? He's the guy who only functions when the writers are feeding him lines. When the camera's off, the charm vanishes. This isn't a bad night. It's just the first time you've seen him without the mask. Colbert, now behind his desk, tried to rally. Colbert, don't listen to him. He's trying to tear down everything we've built together. Reynolds, mocking. Together? These people don't owe you anything. They came for entertainment, not your breakdown. You want to know what we built tonight? We built the most uncomfortable moment in late-night history. Someone in the front row started to clap. They stopped quickly when no one joined. Reynolds, continuing. I've been in this business over 20 years. I've seen egos, meltdowns, and people crack under pressure. But never, never have I seen a host spiral like this just because someone refused to kiss their ring. Colbert's voice trembled. Colbert, this isn't about ego. It's about respect. You came into my house. Reynolds, cutting him off, and pulled the curtain back. You should thank me, Stephen, because for the first time in years, your audience finally got something real. I've worked for your house, Reynolds. Stephen Colbert stood, gesturing broadly to the entire studio around them. This isn't your house, Stephen, Ryan Reynolds replied, spreading his arms just as wide. This is CBS's house. You're just a tenant, and not a particularly good one. He took a step closer. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how you just spent 30 minutes disrespecting your audience, your staff, and your profession. Inside the control room, producers were in full-blown panic. The show had run long, commercial breaks had been missed, and high-level executives were already on their phones. But no one dared pull the plug, not when this was clearly turning into a career-defining moment. Colbert's voice cracked as he tried to respond. I've disrespected my profession, he repeated, as if the words themselves stung. I've given my life to this profession. I've sacrificed my privacy, my family, my relationships, to be here, every night, trying to bring people something that matters. His voice broke further. And you've turned it all into a joke. Reynolds didn't flinch. No, Stephen, you turned it into a joke, the moment you decided your feelings mattered more than your professionalism. He paused, letting the words land like punches. You want to know what people will remember 6 months from now? It won't be your monologues. It won't be your interviews with senators or comedians. It'll be this. The night Stephen Colbert melted down on live TV because Ryan Reynolds bruised his ego. The audience had fractured. Some nodded quietly in agreement. Others looked on in horror. A few, even, walked out, but most sat frozen, hypnotized by the raw spectacle unraveling before them. Colbert sank back into his chair. He looked smaller now, older somehow. You're right, he murmured, barely audible. You're absolutely right. I made a complete fool of myself tonight. For a moment, it felt like the storm had passed. Reynolds even took a step back. But then Colbert looked up, and there was a flicker of defiance in his eyes. But you know what, Ryan? He said. At least I care. At least I give a damn about something besides my image and my bank account. He sat forward, voice rising again. You can stand there and preach about professionalism, but you're just another Hollywood pretty boy who's never had to fight for anything real in his life. Reynolds stopped cold. The studio held its breath. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and deadly calm. You think I've never had to fight for anything? He stepped forward. You think this? He gestured to himself. The fame, the spotlight, was given to me. His eyes didn't blink. I fought for years to be taken seriously. I fought through failures, public humiliations, stuff that would have broken most people. I rebuilt my career when everyone thought I was a punchline, and I did it without whining, without blaming anyone else. Colbert scoffed, the fire returning. To his voice. Oh, spare me. You're a good-looking white guy from Canada who caught a few lucky breaks. Don't act like you clawed your way out of some pit of adversity. That hit was meant to end the conversation. Instead, it lit a fuse. Reynolds slowly walked toward Colbert's desk. This time, security stayed frozen. You want to talk about adversity? He said, the edge in his voice unmistakable. Let me tell you about adversity. He looked directly into Colbert's eyes. Try making people laugh for a living while you watch your father die slowly from Parkinson's. Try doing press junkets with a smile while battling anxiety so bad you can't breathe backstage. Try being married to someone more successful than you, and every interview is a question about whether you feel emasculated. The room was silent. Even Colbert looked stunned. And the difference between us, Reynolds continued. When life kicked me in the teeth, I didn't take it out on my staff. I didn't use my platform to drag innocent people down with me. I turned that pain into something that helped people. Something that made them laugh when they needed it. Most. Colbert's eyes were rimmed red now, though it wasn't clear whether it was fury or something more vulnerable. Get out, he whispered. Just get out. Reynolds nodded slowly. I'm going, but before I do... He turned toward the audience one last time. Let me say this. He took a breath. You deserve better. You deserve a host who respects you enough not to bleed all over the stage when he's hurting. This job, this platform, it's a privilege, not a therapy session. And comedy? It's supposed to bring people together, not rip them apart. As Reynolds let security finally guide him off stage, Colbert sat alone, staring out at an audience that no longer looked at him the same way they had when the lights first came up. The cameras kept rolling, but nobody moved. The silence stretched, on until Colbert finally looked into the lens and whispered, "We'll be right back." But everyone in that studio knew nothing would ever be quite the same again, so what really pushed Stephen Colbert to the edge that night? Was it pressure from the network? Personal turmoil? Or something deeper, something that had been brewing for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more dramatic, true stories from behind the curtains of Hollywood.